Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has decided to stick by Joe Biden, calling the former vice president's denials in response to Tara Reade sexual assault allegations sufficient. Here he is making that case.
Before the Me Too movement, women were not listened to who were telling what had happened to them. Since Me Too, women are listened to. Now, I've heard Joe Biden's explanation. I think it's sufficient. I think he will be a great candidate. I think he will be a great president, and I think he'll help us take back the Senate.
Okay, so there's Schumer saying, you know what, Biden's denials are sufficient. Is he not merciful? Mm-hmm. He allowed her to speak. Even though Biden had nothing to do with her speaking, she finally felt the need to come forward and share her side of the story. But look, before we get to that, I do want to just juxtapose what you saw in response to Biden's denials with how Chuck Schumer responded to Kavanaugh's denials. And in the video you're about to watch, he's specifically addressing his comments to Mitch McConnell. But what he's saying does give you a sense of the double standard that was applied in this case. So let's take a look.
Instead of looking at what happened, that a young woman came forward because she felt compelled to, knowing she'd risk so much on herself, which unfortunately has happened, he seeks to blame somebody else. In this case, the Democrats. Let's remember, Dr. Ford came forward before Judge Kavanaugh was even nominated. Dr. Ford came forward and called up two people before anyone even knew of her allegations, including one, a hotline from the Washington Post, according to her testimony. And my colleague here, has engaged in a giant kabuki game. He knows how believable Dr. Ford is. He knows how the American people, a majority of them, believe Dr. Ford was telling the truth rather than Judge Kavanaugh. He knows that any focus on Dr. Ford would bring more feelings that Judge Kavanaugh is the wrong person for the Supreme Court. But he can't attack Dr. Ford because of her credibility, greater than Judge Kavanaugh's.
We've gone over the allegations by Reade, and we also did extensive coverage of the allegations against Kavanaugh. I absolutely believe Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. There's no question that I believed her. That was a difficult story to report on. I also believe the allegations made by Tara Reade. But the amount of evidence in the Reade story or the Reade case is certainly more than the, corroborating witness evidence that we had in the Christine Blasey Ford case. And I just find it so fascinating how differently Tara Reade's allegations are being treated. Look, for me, I get it. People want to make this political. They want to make it about we got to beat Donald Trump. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in not taking that into account when I'm assessing the allegations, because I think sexual assault allegations are serious and you should hear out what's being alleged. You should look at what evidence is being presented, and you should, because someone's life is really, on the line here, not like whether she lives or dies, but like what she went through, right? I think it's important to just take the politics out of it and just assess it fairly. And I hate the fact that it's become so clear that sexual assault and the abuse of women seems to be nothing more than a weaponized political prop. And it's gross. It really is.
Yeah. Look, and I feel like this is very similar to the last time we talked about it. All we can do is what we think is our ethical duty to accurately report the news. And that's what we've done. I feel like we were consistent across both of those cases. I hate the way that Schumer talked about that. Obviously, I find his comments insufficient, actually, and he'll probably be asked in the future about it, although not on CNN or MSNBC, more than likely. But now looking at it as I don't know what we can expect at this point. I mean, look, obviously, I think it would be very easy for the Democrats to both ensure that they have the appearance of actually caring about moral consistency when it comes to these sorts of allegations, and also pragmatically benefit themselves likely in the election by choosing another candidate, a candidate who's not going to have lingering doubts and questions about this for the rest of the election. They could do that. They're not going to do that, clearly. What we in the news have done is try to do our best to make sure that people know about the story. And, I saw a poll showing that 86% of those polled were familiar with the story now. So I think that to the extent that that's possible, that has been done. But it also shakes down to about a third believe it, a third don't believe it, and a third don't know what to believe. And it doesn't appear at this point that anything is likely to come up that is going to drastically shift that. And so that sort of leads to even more frustration, knowing that we've talked about the story, we've described to the best of our ability, and it looks like the country is breaking down into the same sort of camps that they always do. They shift which camp they're in depending on who's being accused, obviously, but it always seems to be so contingent on the perceived political consequences.
Yeah, and I think and I know you hate this word because it's been misused so much by dishonest people, but I think like the neoliberal project has always been, yeah, we agree with Republicans on all of these economic policies. But what makes us better is that we look out for the disenfranchised. We want to protect people from abuse. We want to make sure that we give women a voice. And I just don't see how they're going to make that argument now when it's become clear that when it comes to politics and when it comes to convenience or benefiting themselves, they don't actually care about these things at all. It's just kind of, it feels like it doesn't, that they don't. And I want to also be fair. It's not like every single congressional Democrat has come out against Reade. There have been Democrats who have said, no, she sounds credible. AOC was the first to finally address it and do so, I think, in a compassionate way. But, some of these Democrats, including Democratic leadership, the way they've handled this, I think really does make people now question whether they're sincere in their concerns about disenfranchised people or people who've been abused.
I mean, as a quick answer to your question, they will go back to saying that they're in support of those people, and the right, who are just ecstatic that they can briefly pretend that they give a damn about anything that's ever happened to a woman, will instantly go back to viciously attacking them and cheering on a president who mocks the appearance of the people who accuse him. They can't wait to turn back to that. This was a fun little game that they played, and then they'll go back to not caring. Both sides will go back, and we'll be left as one of the few who are trying to be consistent across the entire thing.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.